Hi guys, Ian Spanier here for Westcott. We're going to be shooting today with singer-songwriter, country musician Travis Howard. We're going to be shooting an album cover, and I'm going to show you some of the lighting that we're going to be using for this pretty dynamic portrait. For lighting today, we're going to be going with the Westcott FJ400s, my go-to strobes, and we're going to be using two lights. A very simple setup, but something that I think is really dynamic and can show you guys how you really don't need a truck full of gear in order to get a great portrait done. We're going to be using an FJ400 with a 7-foot shoot-through umbrella as our fill light, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Our key light is going to be a Rapid Box Beauty Dish, which is 24-inch with diffusion and a grid. And at the very last minute, our client, even though we booked this great location, asked for shots on seamless. Problem is, we don't have a seamless. Other problem is the studio doesn't have a seamless. So Westcott saved the day. We have the X-Drop Pro, which is a great on-location backdrop. Comes with this fantastic fabric. We can get these seamless shots done really easily. We're going to be using the same lighting on our key shot, our main shot, and then we're just basically going to rotate around and shoot on seamless as well. This gives the client more options, and this is something very important for any of you commercial photographers who need to give your clients lots of options. This will allow them to strip Travis out of the background and put a different background in if they decide they want something else for promotion, or if they decide they don't like this background at the end of the day, or whatever they want to do. And so this gives us options. Options are always great. Thanks to the FJ-X2M trigger, I'm able to work alone when I need to, and these days it seems to be happening a lot. I'm going to be able to trigger my lights and do my metering. I'm also going to be able to make changes from the camera very easily because everything is controlled from here. So as always, I always stress the importance of light metering, and so we're going to start off with a couple readings just to make sure that everything's set, and that's how we're going to know to set the camera right. So with the trigger, I'm going to turn my main light to sleep, and I'm going to turn on the fill light first. I always light from the back first. This is kind of my technique. And I'm going to look for something that's about a 3-stop difference between my lights. That ratio is very important, and I'm going to get into that as we get into shooting a little bit. So we're in good shape. That's going to be f2.8. We're shooting at ISO 200 to start. I'm going to turn off that fill light, and now I'm going to read the key light. Excuse my reach there. All right, and I'm going to come down a little bit. I'm looking for about f8. Okay, we're good there. I'm also going to make sure the sound is on so I can hear that beep. And then after I do that reading, I'm going to take a reading of both lights together. Okay, and that's 801. So that's pretty good for me. I like to be a little bit higher than f8, so that little extra tenth is great. And then I'm going to shoot the camera at f7.1. And the reason I do this is I like a nice broad spectrum on my histogram, so everything's going to be juxtaposed to the right. We do have kind of a darker scene given that Travis is wearing a dark shirt. The background's a little bit dark. We're not putting lights on that background, but we do have this white guitar, which is the reason I put the grid on the key light. That light's going to now focus in mostly on Travis's face. It's going to drop off right about his chest area, so we won't have a blast of light on that white. The fill light is going to bring some light into that shadow because, as you can see, my key light is coming from an angle. That's with intent. I want this look. This is kind of going to give us that sort of country music star look, which is what we're going for today. A lot of times when I work with the FJ400s, I'm going to be portable. I prefer to be portable. I don't like plugging in. As you can see, I'm wireless as far as even tethering is concerned. I'm shooting with a CamRanger 2. It's going to my iPad. It sends a JPEG right away. My client can see the files coming through just as I'm shooting. And the reason that I like to be wireless is I don't want to be tripping. I want to be able to move. I want to be mobile, all those things. I can make quick changes that way. I do like to see what my light looks like. So I do, from the remote, turn the LED on the FJ400, and that gives me that option just to have a look at it. Now we have some other lights in the studio here today, so I'm not really able to see it fully the way that I would if all the other lights are off, but I do have a sense of where that catch light is hitting in Travis's eye, and that's a good indicator to me of the angle of the light, which is really what's important to me on this kind of a shot where I have my light set on purpose to a side angle. So let's go ahead and take a test shot. Make sure the camera is set. We are shooting at ISO 200th of a second at f7.1. So as you know, album covers are typically square, so I'm actually using the grid lines in my camera to purposely frame up as a square. Now, if I need to extend that background, I will plan on doing that in post. As much as I don't like to say, oh, we'll fix it in post, it is something that I'm limited here at the studio, given that the door is only so big, but we do like this wood background. All right, that's great right there, Travis. Good. So right out the gate, we can see our exposure looks pretty good. You can see the use of that grid has allowed us to keep a lot of light off of that guitar, which if we didn't do that, that guitar would be blasting white at the camera, which would be really distracting. We really do want the focus on Travis and who he is as a person, not his guitar necessarily. We did have other options with guitars, but we felt that they blended too much into the background, and this white one looked pretty spectacular, so we went with it. Again, I always want to try to give my clients something that is usable right out of cameras as close as possible. I don't want them to have to imagine what something is going to look like. Of course, I can send them some sample images in the end, but that wood is not really falling in the right place, but I like where Travis is standing. I like where the light is, so I'm just going to move the door just a little bit so we get a little bit more wood behind Travis. You stay where you are. Good, right there. Okay, and then the rest of that I can just extend if I need to. I'm a little bit limited in the size of the studio that I can't move back. I would use probably a longer lens and shorten that background a little bit, but I am today shooting with the 24-70 because of the distance that I have allowed in this kind of smaller space. All right, Travis, so let's go. We'll do just a bunch of things. As I always say, I can't tell you how to be you, so you got to show me who you are. And if I get quiet, it just means you're doing great, and you just keep doing little changes each time. It's always a great way for me to give a lot of options at the end. So just small, they can be subtle changes, just the angle of your face, different expressions, all those things. That looks great. Nice. Good. Whenever I'm working with celebrities or singers, musicians, anybody like that, I always want them to sort of show me who they are, which is always a confusing question quite often to them. But I think that gives them something to think about, and it allows me to sort of capture as much as I can who they are. I mean, the reason I kind of throw that out to people of saying, I can't tell you who you are, is it sort of gets their brain thinking in that way. And if nothing else, it's sort of a distraction from, you know, the 8 to 10 people who are looking at them, or the lights strobing, or all the other things going on here, and lets them sort of get lost in their own space. Great expression. See, I told you you can be you.
Oh, you did it. You brought me.
Well, you did that. I didn't do anything. I just tricked you psychologically, that's all. All right, so it's usually at this point that I feel like, you know, I've got a sense, I kind of know when I have it. Of course, I'm going to show it to the client, I'm going to show the talent, make sure that they're happy with it. As long as they see a couple of frames that they like, that's usually a good time for me to move on. So I just want to show you guys why I light this scene the way that I lit it. As I mentioned, we've got the 24-inch beauty dish. One of my favorite, it's kind of, you know, that question I always get is what's the light modifier you'd bring to the deserted island? This is the one. The reason being that I can make about 5 or 6 different looks with this one modifier, with and without diffusion, with and without the grid. it just gives me lots of things, different angles, different feels. I can go from country music to hip hop in the same light modifier, which is really important to me when I'm doing music or athletes or celebrities. Now, the other thing you might have noticed is that I have a V-flat set up next to Travis. These are these V-flat World V-flats. I love. They're super easy, very portable. I can fit them in the back of my truck. They fold down to a square. I have it with the black side facing in on purpose. If I had the white side, it would be filling in that shadow, but because I'm using the 7-foot shoot-through umbrella, that's already filling in my shadow, and this is giving us a negative fill. That negative fill gives me a nice edge on the side opposite of the key light. And once we get to seamless, you're really gonna see where that comes in handy. As far as the shoot-through umbrella goes, the reason that I do the shoot-through umbrella is it gives me a lot of availability of movement. So if I decide I want to do something else, I have the ability to fill in the shadows, because this one's not going to move. It's going to be behind camera the whole time, but I can move my key light around and change the look or do something different. So usually what happens is once I know I have the main shot that I need, I always see something different. So because my fill light is where it's at, it's really easy for me to make a really subtle but big change at the same time. So Travis, I'm going to have you, do you have a preferred side, right or left? Good. You did that perfectly because that light's right there. I'm going to have you face right towards the light there. Good. Right about that angle there is perfect. Okay, good. Now I'm going to take my key light and I'm actually going to bring it around and point it just slightly different than what we were doing. So something I always do is sort of think about angles. It's very much like pool in terms of lighting. So I'm looking at the center of that light and how it's cutting across my subject's face. And what I'm going to go for here is just a little bit of a kind of a hard cross light that's going to leave a little bit of triangle on camera side. I'm going to do a quick meter reading. Make sure that since I moved that key light, it's not going to change too much. I'm going to quickly turn off my fill light. Excuse my reach. Good. It's a little bit hotter, so I'm just going to come down just a touch. Good. All right. Now my fill light's back on. Travis, you're going to stay at that angle there, right there. Perfect. Good. Looking straight ahead. Good. Top of your head tilt towards the light just a little bit. Right there. Perfect. Good. Cool. All right. So what this does, it just gives just one more look. Rest those hands on top of the guitar like you did earlier. Bring that right hand in more. Yep. Good. Come in real tight for this. Good. Maybe bring the neck up towards your face a little bit with your left hand. Yep, right there. Good. Looking down to your left hand was great. Nice, right there. We're going to make a quick transition now. We're going to go to the seamless. We're running out of time, so this is a great reason to use something like this because it's super fast. We had it set up already. If we had seamless paper, it would take so much time to get this thing up. We would need all that extra time to do it. This thing is super fast, super portable, so let's make a quick change. Because we've already established our light and now we want the exact same feel, all we need to do is rotate our set. So it's a pretty simple move, but it'll just take us 2 seconds. Okay, now that we've moved our lights, I'm gonna re-meter just to make sure that we're still in the same settings as we were before. Okay, so we still have 2.8 on our fill light. And we're gonna make sure the key light is still at f8. Good. And once again, reading both together. Good, 801, just like we were before. So now we can mimic the exact same light. The other thing that I'm gonna do is bring in both V-flats now, because whenever I'm shooting on a background, I'm going to want to give negative fill most cases. so that the silhouette of my subject is much easier once he comes to post. So we've got the black on one side. I'm going to bring in the other side now as well. Depending on the situation, will determine how close I actually put these V-flats to my subject. And also if I'm shooting on white or shooting on gray. Now, of course, we have the option of lighting the background as well. Because the background's not important, it's never going to be used in this case, then we're going to go without lighting the background because there's just no need. Okay, good. All right, Travis, so basically same thing, just looking right at me. That's perfect. That's great right there. Okay. Good.
Who knew I was so pretty?
A lot of people ask me about why I use a 2 or 3 stop ratio between my lights. It's a formula that I sort of found works really well for the style that I like to shoot. And it's a really subtle thing. Now, when I talk about lighting, it's always about subtlety. And subtlety is so important with lighting because it's the thing to me that psychologically can sway your viewer. So your viewer might not know exactly from a technical standpoint what they're looking at. However, it will allow them to relate to that image, in my opinion. So by doing this 2 or 3 stop ratio, I'm sort of trying to tell a story, and I'm always using light to do that. So lighting, to me, draws a straight line to a story. And the story I want to tell today is not super, super dramatic. When I turn off the fill light, you lose sort of that fill-in information that's there that helps sort of give a whole sense of who Travis is. When the fill light's back on, I feel like it's a complete story. We have light coming from one side, there's kind of a romantic aspect to it, and that little bit of fill, I think, feels more natural. When we take it away, it's a little too dramatic. If he was starring in a horror film, maybe I'd want to go in that direction, but in this case, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. When I first learned of the X-Drop, I was blown away. I love it as a tool that I keep in my car, keep on set with me. It's just, you know, pop-up background, great idea. Thing is that the size of it, to me, was somewhat limiting, so I ended up buying 2 of them. And what that actually opened up for me was one of my favorite setups, which is an homage to my hero, Irving Penn, and I was able to make these, you know, corner portraits. And I love doing those, and I, you know, still feel like the X-Drop is a great solution for that. And then, of course, everything always gets improved. Now we have the 8x8 X-Drop. This is going to open up even more doors for me because now I have a bigger background to work with in situations where I have somebody holding a prop like a guitar. I might not have been able to fit that so easily on just a 5x7 X-Drop. So now that we have the 8x8, I've got more room to play with. That's less work in post, and as we always say, don't leave it just to post. So this gives me a lot of opportunity. So as you can see, the beauty of portable lighting is how quick I can change from one set to another. The beauty of having a very fast to throw up backgrounds when you don't have seamless paper available to you is another thing that just keeps us moving really quick. And now we have extra time, so we just get to listen to Travis play some music.
Okay, how's this?